Hello, 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 and welcome to another fantastic episode of Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable discussion. Before we get started, let me first remind you that we are covered by the BIP No Government License, which allows for the use and reuse of this podcast by anyone and everyone except for governments and the bludgies thereof. You can learn more about that at bipcot.org. That is BIPCOT.org. We're also protected by Brandenburg v. Ohio, 1969, which ruled that the government cannot punish inflammatory speech unless that speech is, quote, directed to inciting or producing imminent lawless action and is likely to incite or produce such action. Therefore, everything said here on Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable discussion is entirely hypothetical. Yeah, I think this is like episode 148.
I think it's 148. I think that's
148.
Yeah.
Last week was the Ruby Ridge episode, which I really had a hard time going to sleep after that one because those it's one of those things, man. It's one of those things that just it gets to me so bad every year I see it. I know it's on the calendar. Like a month before I see it on the calendar, before I flipped up the page, I know it's coming. It's like fuck.
Yeah, Ruby Ridge is one of those stories too that like you can't talk about it and not just be absolutely furious and utterly heartbroken and just disgusted, and it's a complex wave of emotions to going through that, and trying to go through it and not violate Brandenburg is difficult.
I don't think we incited any, but
yeah,
we didn't really try not to incite anybody.
I mean, I didn't. There's no law that says I have to dissuade people from doing things. It's just that I can't encourage them to. And I didn't encourage anybody to do anything. You get to draw your own conclusions.
Don't talk about it first, because that counts as premeditated.
Mm-hmm.
That's an extra charge for those playing at home.
Yeah, it's an important point.
Speaking of premeditated, what's up, Christopher?
How's it going, guys? It's been one hell of a weekend.
Yeah, we just started. Like I just did the Brandenburg, so you haven't missed anything yet.
Oh, perfect. I'm right on time then. Shit.
Yep.
we spent too much time talking about duck calls.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fair. By the way, on an unrelated note, as far as the premeditated thing goes, 180 grain Hornady XTP hollow points do a number on ground squirrels.
Why? I mean, I know overkill is underrated. I'm completely on board with overkill is underrated. But you could have used a 22.
It's all I had.
Oh.
All I had was my 10 millimeter AR with me out at my in-laws.
Oh, so you woke up and chose violence.
Yes, I did. My father.
So do ground squirrels every day.
Right. My father-in-law has been trying to thin out the ground squirrel problem at his property for all summer.
Oh, we have them here, and I grew up or where my childhood home was. Right behind it was a field that was on and off again used for cattle, and we would go play and rent all the time. My ankles hate ground squirrels.
Oh God, yeah.
So.
Yeah, but so I went down there and I did some load testing with my 10 mil, and while I was down there, I was like, oh well, there's one. Wham! Well, there was one.
There's part of it there, and part of it there, and part of it there.
It looked a lot like Gage's bicep after he ran into Cal Rittenhouse.
There goes our monetization.
Yeah, that. Well.
Andrew and I were laughing before the show about there's a 3D print, a concept print. It's not there's like no plans for it yet or nothing, but it's a concept for a 22 suppressor that looks and sounds like those wooden train whistles.
Oh, good Lord.
It's designed so that you get a thunk. Thunk.
That sounds like way too much fun.
That's we both want one automatically. We both want one, and we were talking about like being at the range, and you're just like, hoot 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 hoot. People in the other bays are looking down there. What the fuck is he shooting?
I was saying, I wonder if you had a large enough caliber and you designed it to the right size, you could get the pressure to drop slow enough that it would go whoo. You have the full-on missile sound after a shot. Can you imagine being in the woods and just hearing, like, seeing one of your buddies go down and then. What the hell is that?
Oh my god, they radicalized the owls.
Yeah.
The birds really are working for the bourgeoisie, son of a bitch.
They hacked the drones.
Yeah. Well, and I was laughing about the time that one of our buddies, we zip tied a duck call to his turbo blow off valve. So every time he shifted, it was but like really high pitch because it's a lot of pressure. So and he didn't realize it until he was in rush hour traffic. So he had to drive like 5 miles in traffic with every single time he shifted, his car quacking very loudly.
Well, it's like those party spinners that you can get that clamp onto the end of an exhaust pipe.
Oh,
so
yeah.
When they take off, it's like. That would be fun to do.
Oh, that's so many pranks. And it's not like it hurt his motor or anything else. I mean, it's just just tied to the blow-off valve. Yeah, and so it just makes him super embarrassed that his like $45,000 tuner build is quacking every time he shifts.
Yeah.
See, that's what friends are for, right there, to do shit like that to each other.
Yeah. Well, it's a little more rude, but I know a buddy of mine, when he got married, they stuck Limburger cheese on his exhaust manifold.
Oh no, that's just cruel. Just cruel.
3 years later, the wind would be blowing just right. He'd come up to a stop sign and
I borrowed my brother's car to take my mom to the hospital one night. Coming back down the hill at like 2 o'clock in the morning, 2:30 in the morning, middle of summer. This is like late July, and it's like 105, 108 during the day. Coming back down the hill, I hit a skunk. I looked underneath it. I didn't see anything when we got home, right? So I just left it. My brother gets up at 5, goes to work, and he calls me at lunchtime. And he's just fucking screaming at me, just completely incoherent. His work had a gravel parking lot, and it was already like 97, 98 degrees at lunchtime. So the gravel was like 115, 120.
Oh.
He said you could smell it in the shop, and no cars parked within like 6 spots of him.
Well, he didn't have to worry about his car getting dinged, at least.
He said driving it home, he almost threw up like 4 times driving it home because
I can imagine that was pretty horrific. Oh, the only thing that smells, that I had that told to me by a fur trader once, like a fur trapper, where he said, it smells the only thing that smells worse than a skunk is a dead skunk, and the only thing that smells worse than that, and then he threw the hide at me. And he's like, as he said, wet dead skunk. And it's smacked me in the chest. I'm like, oh God, what?
Yeah, he gets home, right? He doesn't even turn off the car. He just he opens the door and Jason. I come outside. He's like, fucking clean this. All right, no problem. I took it to the local car wash place. Pressure washed underneath it, and I probably spent a good $6 or $7 worth of quarters pressure washing underneath it, and it was so bad. It was so bad that the guy that runs the car wash place asked me to never come back. So I am banned from the do-it-yourself car wash place in Orville, California.
Oh, good.
I've never been banned from a car wash, so you got me there. I got nothing.
I got banned from the Yuba County Library. That's a story I can't tell on the air.
After show.
No, I'm sure I'm not allowed to tell that story at all because she'll kill me. My kid's mom and I did not get a lot of time alone. Oh, leave it at that.
Please don't come back.
Because I had twins. So we didn't get a lot of time. So when we got time alone,
you took advantage of it.
Yeah. And I'm not welcome back at the library.
Apparently, the Children's Story Hour reader did not appreciate having to try and read loud enough to be heard over that.
May have knocked one of the shelves.
Oh, it's a good way to get caught right there.
Yeah.
Causing destruction. So we gonna talk about Shays Rebellion?
Is that what you want to start with?
Yeah, we might as well. It's a good story because it reminds people, just like the Whiskey Rebellion, that the founding fathers were not nearly the great freedom fighters that you think they were.
Oh, not at all. And what Shays Rebellion leads to is the big one. Like the founding fathers initially sucked, right? That's a fact. But what they used Shays Rebellion as justification for creating is the big issue. Because like we can just say it, like the founders used Shays Rebellion as justification for usurping the Articles of the Confederation and creation of the Constitution, right? Because the Articles of the Confederation severely limited the powers of the federal government, and they were upset that due to the limits of the federal of the limits of the power of the federal government, they were not able to institute bringing in the military to help quell Shays Rebellion. So what they did is they used it to usurp the Articles of Confederation to create the Constitution, which gave the federal government a hell of a lot more power.
A lot more power. Like it is a night and day difference between
the Constitution was a coup.
Yep.
So, but Articles or Shays Rebellion, you want to get into it, Mr. History?
Yeah.
So I just had the one link. I didn't do a whole lot of research. I thought this one link did a really good job of watering the long story down.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a long story. I mean the beginnings of it can be summed up with, it's the 1780s, right? The revolution has finally ended. There's a bunch of veterans who've gone back to their farms and are trying to farm, but during the revolution and stuff, they had to borrow money to keep their farms going. And the business owners in the cities wanted to be paid back fucking now. Like right now. They weren't willing to wait, nothing else. And these farmers, there's no paper money in circulation at all. And again, they had to buy all this stuff on credit to begin with. So they don't have any gold or silver coins. And even if they did, there's not many of those even in circulation at this point. So it's immediately after a war, and they were farming in a war zone. They didn't have a lot. And the Bostonian businesses in particular didn't care. They wanted their payment, plain and simple. They wanted to get paid right now. And the farmers were just getting their crops ready to go to market and didn't even really have a good way to transport it because, again, they're broke.
Yep. Let's see. I'll get into the article, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to skip the little summary and just go to the taxes in the face of poverty. So the end of the Revolutionary War found farmers in rural areas of Massachusetts living in sparse subsistence lifestyles with few assets aside from their land. Forced to barter with each other for goods or services, farmers found it difficult and prohibitively expensive to obtain credit. When they did manage to find credit, repayment was required to be in the form of hard currency, which remained in short supply after the repeal of the despised British Currency Acts. Along with insurmountable commercial debt, usually high tax rates in Massachusetts added to the financial woes of the farmers. Taxed at a rate some 4 times higher than neighboring New Hampshire, a typical Massachusetts farmer was required to pay about 1/3 of their annual income to the state.
Yeah, a full third. They were being taxed higher than they were under the Brits.
Yes.
Immediately after the Revolutionary War,
Yes.
they're being taxed higher than they were before.
Gosh,
Yes.
I mean, it's almost like history repeats itself because look where we are today.
Yes.
Mhm.
Unable to pay either their private debts or their taxes, many farmers faced devastation. Some courts would foreclose on their land and other assets, ordering them sold at public auction for a fraction of their real value. Worse yet, farmers who had already lost their land and other assets were often sentenced to years in dungeon-like and now illegal debtor's prison.
Yeah, they'd be arrested if they did manage to bring their crops into town. When they did, they were then arrested because there's a warrant for them for their debts.
Yes, on top of the financial hardships was the fact that many Revolutionary War veterans had received little or no pay during their time in the Continental Army and were facing roadblocks to collecting back pay owed to them by the Congress or the states.
Yeah, remember
Wow.
that. I mean, they aren't the only ones during the Revolutionary War who are paying for things on credit. The Continental Congress has no money either and is paying everyone in promises, which they are also making on credit. And the things that they are paying for, they're getting on credit. So there's just this huge amount of credit happening and no one's actually paying anything.
Yep.
Except for the businesses.
That's a reoccurring theme when it comes to veterans in the military.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like this, and then the bonus army.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bonus army is at the end of the Civil War. The end of oh, my brain's just completely shutting down for some reason. World War One. But you had and you had stuff at the end of World War II, where you had you had people's houses and stuff, their farms being repossessed and that being interfered by veterans. I mean, now we have a lot of veterans that have their cars repossessed as soon as they get home, or they get evicted as soon as they get home, or their houses get foreclosed on as soon as they get home.
Got to jump through 7 hoops and a crocodile pit in order to get your GI benefits.
Yep.
And that's if you survive the VA.
Yeah. The VA giving veterans a new opportunity to die for their country since, was it 1979? That was.
Yeah. On top of the financial hardships, was the fact that many Revolutionary veterans were paying the Continental Army. Blah, blah. Some of these soldiers, like Daniel Shays, began to organize protests against what they considered to be excessive taxes and abusive treatment by the courts. A Massachusetts farmhand, when he volunteered for the Continental Army, Shays fought in the Battle of Lexington and Concord, Bunker Hill, and Saratoga. So, dude was in
a lot
some
of
shit.
blood.
Yes. After being wounded in action, Shays resigned unpaid from the Army and went home, where he was taken to court for non-payment of pre-war debts. Realizing that the farm was far from alone in his plight, he began to organize his fellow protesters.
Yeah, I mean, and they did try to do things peacefully first. They did try. I mean, several years.
That's a recurring thing in any kind of a revolution or rebellion, is they always try the peaceful method first. I mean, you could say the same thing about Heemeyer.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, and there's attempts to do redress of grievances, which were supposed to be something that they were now able to do, and draft these things that they could submit to their local state congresses and stuff for redress of grievances and for compensation, and that fell on deaf ears. Colonel Hines tried to actively block judges from entering the courthouse for debtor hearings.
Right.
Yeah, that's one of the things they mentioned coming up. Yeah. With the spirit of revolution still fresh, hardships led to protests. In 1786, aggrieved citizens in 4 Massachusetts county held semi-legal conventions to demand, among other reforms, lower taxes and the issuance of paper money. However, the state legislature, having already suspended tax collections for a whole year, refused to listen and ordered the immediate and full payment of taxes. With this, the public resentment of tax collectors and the courts escalated quickly.
This is right after a war over taxes. Yes. Where they had been tar and feathering taxmen and things. Right after that, and their immediate attitude is, well, you better pay up.
Yeah.
Bad.
Didn't we just shoot a bunch of people over this not that long ago? I mean,
that had to be what the farmers are saying to each other as they're looking like, well, we just got done killing people over this.
Yes.
Did I really think this is going to work?
On August 29th, 1786, which is 235 years ago today, a group of protesters succeeded in preventing the county tax court in Northampton from convening. What they did is a bunch of hard motherfuckers with rifles stood in front of the court and prevented the local magistrate from getting into the court.
Yeah, it was Captain Hines. He had several hundred more men from Amherst, which is right up the road from there, also came and helped him. So you're talking about a couple hundred armed men standing in uniform, Continental Army uniform, in front of the courthouse going, no, you're not going in.
Not only that, but they in one of the they did this several different counties, several different times. One of the times the state called up the local militia, which would be the National Guard at this point. And the National Guard, or the militia at the time, saw what was happening, put down their arms, and joined the protesters.
Yep. Yeah, that was
that's the way it should fucking be too.
Every fucking time.
Yeah, that was in Worcester. They showed up. Half of them didn't even answer the call for the militia. They just went, screw you, no, because they knew what was going on. And the ones who did showed up and immediately just rotated 180 degrees and joined the protesters because they also hadn't been paid.
Yes. Having taken part in Northampton protests, Daniel Shays quickly gained followers, calling themselves Shayites or regulators in reference to an earlier tax reform movement in North Carolina. Shays' group orchestrated protests at more county courthouses, effectively preventing taxes from being collected. Hallelujah.
My spirit animal.
Greatly disturbed by the tax protest, George Washington, in a letter to his close friend David Humphreys, expressed fear that, quote, commotions of this sort, like snowballs, gather strength as they roll, if there is no opposition in the way to divide and crumble them.
Oh, he'd know, wouldn't he, considering he just took part in an armed rebellion over taxes?
Yeah, I'm going to read that quote again. This is a quote from George Washington, who is not yet president of the United States.
Correct. Yeah, there were 2 or 3 presidents under the Articles of Confederation before Washington was elected. However, you also got to remember though, Washington is an aristocrat. Washington,
he considered himself British, didn't he?
Well, largely his brother had owned a very large plantation. Washington, George himself, he had actually not owned much. And then when his brother died, he inherited that, basically ran it mostly into the ground, needed money, wanted prestige, which is when he married Martha, who was a very rich widow, which was actually quite the scandal at the time in Virginia, that he being half her age got her to marry him and then immediately took control of all of her finances. So if you think George Washington
bankrupt her too.
Yeah, if you think Washington is this great and wonderful man, he may have said some pretty amazing things, but that isn't how he lived.
Yeah. So the quote again is expressed his fear that, quote, commotions of this sort, like snowballs, gather strength as they roll, if there's no opposition in the way to divide and crumble them.
Divide and conquer.
That sounds awfully awfully relevant to.
That sounds awfully tyrannical.
Well, doesn't it sound familiar to right now?
Yes.
Divide and
What?
conquer.
I'm just saying, like Battle of Athens that we talked about back on August 1st.
Yeah.
With Magnus and the boys, Magnus and Trashman and Oldman. Just saying, there was a lot of relevance to current events in that one.
Yeah.
Shay's Rebellion. There's a lot of relevance to current events in this one.
Interesting.
Anytime we talk about these historical, you'd call them minor rebellions. I don't know. There is always a lot of parallels to what's happening today, and then people wonder why more and more people are willing or expressing a willingness openly to, shoot tyrants.
Yep. By December 1786, the growing conflict between farmers, their creditors, and the state tax collectors drove Massachusetts Governor Bowdoin to mobilize a special army of 1,200 militiamen funded by private merchants and dedicated solely to stopping Shays and his regulators.
Well, and keep in mind, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that happened before this too. I mean, he, sometime in 1786 that Shay truly moves into being an insurgent. And becomes fully radicalized. In September, he's got about 600 guys with him, that are following him. They shut down the court in Springfield. And he still doesn't want to fight anybody. He's still like, I don't want this to come to actual armed action. I still want this to be, civil and things. We just need you to listen.
Again, very, very relevant to current issues.
Yeah, and he actually finally got General Shepard to agree to allow that he would let the court open as long as the protesters could parade. However, the court couldn't find any jurors to serve on the debtors' court, and just shut down anyway, because obviously no one was going to come in and judge these debtors while there's 600 armed debtors directly outside the building.
What?
So it ultimately didn't, but he let them open. He still was like, no, we'll do this peacefully. It's fine.
I kept my word.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, Henry Knox, also, he was an artillery commander during the Revolutionary War. He was actually the first U.S. Secretary of War. He wrote about Shay. He said, they see the weakness of government. They feel at once their own poverty compared with the opulent and their own force, and they are determined to make use of the latter in order to remedy the former. Their creed is that the property of the United States has been protected from the confiscations of Britain by the joint exertions of all, and therefore ought to be the common property of all. Our government must be braced, changed, or altered to secure our lives and property. We imagined that the mildness of our government and the virtue of the people were so correspondent that we were not, as other nations, requiring brutal force to support the laws, but we find that we are men, actual men, possessing all the turbulent passions belonging to that animal, and we must have a government proper and adequate for him.
I like that.
Yeah. Very eloquent.
Yeah. So he's like, oh, we thought we could just, we can just negotiate with people, but apparently, we can't negotiate with people. So we're going to have to be violent, is what he said. So
again, awful similar to today's world.
Yeah.
There's a whole psychological discussion around that. We could have, but okay. Let's see. Led by former Continental Army General Benjamin Lincoln, Bowdoin's special army was ready for the pivotal battle of Shays' Rebellion. On January 25th, 1787, Shays, along with some 1,500 of his regulators, attacked the Federal Armory in Springfield, Massachusetts. Though outnumbered, General Lincoln's well-trained and battle-tested army had anticipated the attack and held a strategic advantage over Shays' angry mob. After firing a few volleys of muskets warning shots, Lincoln's army leveled artillery fire on the still advancing mob, killing 4 of the regulators and wounding 20 more.
Well, and keep in mind, the Battle of Springfield happens after Chief Justice William Whiting openly declares support for the rebellion, and says that the legislators are intentionally trying to make money not off of the rich people and off of the merchants and things that have all the money, but the farmers who can't defend themselves. And he says that. Meanwhile, Samuel Adams calls for their immediate execution.
So Founding Father says execute the guys who don't agree with the extortion and the practices of all the finances and all that stuff.
Well, remember, Sam Adams is a business owner in Boston.
Well, right. So it's his own self-interest.
Yeah.
But then the Chief Justice says, no, I think they have a point.
The Massachusetts legislature did offer them leniency. They offered to say, well, if you guys just put your arms down, go home, and swear an oath of allegiance to us, then we'll give you amnesty.
We just fought a war to not have to swear allegiance to anybody.
Yeah. And they wanted an oath of allegiance, and they said, well, we'll let you go home, and we'll give you, some negotiating room on your taxes. And that was their offer.
Yeah.
To which, of course, most of the rebels said, fuck you. Also, they simultaneously,
what a shock.
Yeah, well, and they simultaneously passed a bill that said it was perfectly okay for any sheriffs to kill the rebels, and that the rebels should face especially hard consequences.
Yeah.
What a shock.
Let's see. So that after they were hurt, after that they failed to get to the armory. That was essentially when the end of Shays' rebellion. That was, in exchange for immediate amnesty from prosecution, some 4,000 individuals signed confessions acknowledging their participation in the rebellion. Several hundred participants were later indicted on a range of charges relating to the rebellion. Most were pardoned. 18 men were sentenced to death. 2 of them, John Bly and Charles Rose of Berkshire County, were hanged for thievery on December 6, 1787, while the rest were either pardoned, had their sentence commuted, or had their convictions overturned on appeal.
Well, yeah, and keep in mind, during this, prior to the Battle of Springfield, they also suspended the writ of habeas corpus.
Yeah. So in exchange for amnesty from prosecution,
they got prosecuted.
18 men were sentenced to death. Yes.
Yeah, that was another bill that was I was going to mention. There was a bill that specifically said that if you took part in an armed rebellion, that death was the required penalty. December of 1786, that's when local militia attacked a local farmer. They arrested him. They permanently crippled him for the rest of his life. They beat him so badly. And this is while the legislature is trying to convince the rebels to go home. Well, obviously that doesn't work out so hot. Which is kind of what leads directly to, 1787 in January and the battle in Springfield. And the one of them actually at the Battle of Springfield was Luke Day, who had actually fought in Quebec in 1775 with Benedict Arnold. Yeah, and he brought 400 men with him. Eli Parsons brought 600. So, there is quite a few guys there, actually. This is not a small thing. This battle was not small. This was a huge fight. And ultimately, just like, the Easter Rising in Ireland in 1916, it falls apart and then a bunch of people get executed.
Yep. Shays, who had been hiding in Vermont, in a Vermont forest since fleeing from the failed attack on the Springfield armory, returned to Massachusetts after being pardoned in 1788. He later settled near Constance, New York, where he lived below the poverty threshold until his death in 1825.
Well, and keep in mind during some of that when he was in hiding, he was with Ethan Allen of all people. Ethan Allen, the Revolutionary War leader, the outdoor brand Ethan Allen is named for him.
Mhm.
He is known as a mountain man and kind of this rough rider type, and who independently he had his Rangers, Allen's Rangers, and so he's actually with another Revolutionary War leader while he's in hiding in Vermont. And during this time period too, in the aftermath of this, Boston passes laws that say that anybody who participates in the rebellion, basically they declare them non-people. They're no longer allowed to serve on juries. They can't ever hold public office. They can't work for schools. They're not allowed to vote. They can't get a liquor license. They're not allowed an innkeeper's license.
You're saying they were canceled?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. They tried to remove their personhood for it, even though, you were pardoned because you participated in it. You're not allowed to do any of these things anymore.
Gosh,
I'm
seeing an awful lot of fucking parallels here. I can't put my finger on it, but there just seems to be something there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. So as inspiring as Shays Rebellion was, the after effects of Shays Rebellion is when shit really gets wild. Though it failed to achieve its goals, Shays Rebellion focused attention on the serious weaknesses in the Articles of the Confederation that prevented the national government from effectively managing the government's finances. The obvious need for reforms led to the Constitutional Convention of 1787 and the replacement of the Articles of the Confederation with the U.S. Constitution and its Bill of Rights.
Motherfucking Alexander Hamilton.
Yep. Government Bowdoin's actions in quashing the rebellion, though successful, were widely unpopular and proved to be his political downfall. In the gubernatorial election of 1787, he received few votes from the rural parts of the state and was easily defeated by founding father and first signer of the Constitution, Mr. John Hancock.
Yep. Yeah, Hancock's the one who pardoned almost everybody.
Yeah. And thus Magic Parchment was born.
Additionally, the legacy of Bowdoin's military victory was tarnished by extensive tax reforms. Over the next several years, the Massachusetts legislature cut property taxes significantly and placed a moratorium on debt collections.
Yeah. Meanwhile, poor Shays dies destitute in 1825 and gets buried in an unmarked grave.
Yes. In addition to his concerns over the rebellion, drew George Washington back into public life and helped persuade him to accept the Constitutional Convention's unanimous nomination to serve as the first president of the United States.
Yeah, remember, at that point, Washington had actually retired. Yeah, like he was done.
In final analysis, Shays Rebellion contributed to the establishment of a stronger federal government.
Yep.
Also, it didn't contribute to the establishment of a stronger federal government. What it did is it gave the Federalist the ammunition that it needed to cheerlead for a stronger national government.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hence the joy of the Burr tactical solutions, if you will.
Yes.
You got to be a history nerd to get that joke, but it's funny. Trust me. And then the crazy thing to me is there is now a Daniel Shays Memorial Highway in Massachusetts. U.S. Route 202 section of it, the section of it that goes through Massachusetts, is the Daniel Shays Memorial Highway.
So they made a memorial highway for a guy that, had they been able to secure a conviction, likely would have executed?
Yes.
Try to do those mental jumping jacks for a second.
Well, because here's why that matters. And that matters because what that tells you is something very specific. It tells you that government loves to try and celebrate freedom fighters while trying to stop freedom fighters.
Well, because the government wants you to have heroes, but they also want you to see what happens to those heroes, like the signers of the Constitution, or the signers of the Declaration of Independence, right? Like 56 signers. What is it, like 40 of them died in battle, were hunted down by the British, and some others just natural causes, and like very few of them actually survived beyond the next 10 years.
Right, and those who did, you largely ended up broke and just completely run down and impoverished.
Well, I mean, there's Hancock, who became a governor. There's Jefferson, who became a president.
There's my ancestor, Josiah Bartlett, who ended up broke and destitute.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of outcome there, but a lot of them were killed. A lot of them were killed. Which gets conveniently not really mentioned in American history classes. They don't really talk about the fact that just about everybody who signed that died in the course of the war. Like, they were hunted down like dogs.
Let's see. Here's another one about it. Another quote about it from Washington, October 31st, 1786, to Henry Lee. He said, quote, "You talk, my good sir, of employing influences to appease the present tumults in Massachusetts. I know not where the influence is to be found, or, if obtainable, that it would be a proper remedy for these disorders. Influence is not government. Let us have a government by which our lives, liberties, and properties will be secured, or let us know the worst at once." So he wanted big government.
Yep. Help me, daddy, government. Help me. I mean, that letter to him that I read too, that's what that was advocating for, is we're going to need violent big government to take care of this, because it turns out that we can't just trust people. Well, no, you could have totally trusted people. The problem was fucking government in the first place, you ass. That was the first problem. If anybody wants to read more on this too, there's Shays' Rebellion, The American Revolution's Final Battle, Leonard L. Richards. One of my favorites, which is Paul DeVal's Massachusetts Troublemakers, Rebels, Reformers, and Radicals from the Bay State. That one's quite good. But yeah, Shays' Rebellion, much like the Whiskey Rebellion, it's immediately after the Revolutionary War ends. And it's for the exact reason that the Revolutionary War was fought, just like the Whiskey Rebellion. This is what it's about. It's about the fact that, this is over the idea that you're not allowed to tax us, and we just fought a war over this. And now, not only are you taxing us, you're throwing us into debtors' prisons because we're being ordered to pay this in hard currency that doesn't exist.
Right.
Literally does not exist. Like, there's no U.S. currency at this point.
Yeah. No, they're basically trading in precious metals or the barter system at this point.
No.
Well, and they don't have they're farmers. They don't have precious metals. So it's like, what are they going to do? You might still have gold coins, silver coins in the cities, but we don't have it out here. We've been bartering with each other because there's nothing else. There's no other medium of exchange. But the banks will not take the trades that they have available, demand hard currency that the farmers do not have access to.
Yeah, tomatoes don't incur interest.
Yeah.
Right.
So, this is the problem that these farmers are facing, and the United States government doesn't give a shit at this point. The Massachusetts government doesn't give a shit. Would be
one would make the argument that they never have.
Well, yeah, I mean, and in the Massachusetts government too, it's ironic because of how much of the American Revolution was fomented in Boston. But what it amounted to, though, you got to remember, is that these men who were demanding taxation and reform and and more freedom and liberty and everything else wanted it for them, not for other people. I mean, that's the whole reason why the Constitution, when it's first drafted, specifically only gives franchisement to white male landowners over the age of 21. And this is an important point. When they write the Constitution, that's who they give all of the power to now is just them.
Yeah, it was, as we said, it was a coup.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because it completely flipped the power structure upside down, right? Instead of the people having the power, it flipped where the federal government and the people that run the federal government, they were the power brokers.
Yep. Yeah, and that's, I mean, when you see that change when you look at the first few continental congresses and the discussions that happen there, because we have what's said during it, when you have the first few, what's getting said versus when they're debating the Constitution, and those differences in what these arguments are, and what especially that Hamilton and his Federalists are making. You see this really big change from it being about the people and about being all of us, and and that no one has a right to rule anyone else except by the mandate of those other people, and all of a sudden it changes.
Yeah, and like it changed so dramatically and became so potentially tyrannical in a lot of people's eyes that a lot of people refused to sign off on it until they included a Bill of Rights. Right? Because the Bill of Rights was not part of the Constitution. The Constitution was how the federal government was going to be run. The Bill of Rights, they only included so that the power brokers could get everyone on board with this, with the new structure program, new system.
Yep. Yeah, and this is, I mean, and again, this is why I laugh about the Burr tactical pistol solutions, because as a direct result of these arguments over the Federalist versus anti-Federalist and stuff, that is what leads to the rivalry between Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton, which leads to Aaron Burr challenging Alexander Hamilton to a duel, and Burr fucking kills him. Yay, Burr! So
that's still one of my favorite commercials, with the peanut butter commercial, or it was a milk commercial, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say on the milk. Yeah, that's. But
peanut butter sandwich. It was a milk commercial. Yeah.
That's one of those things, though. Yeah.
So, speaking of the Constitution being a coup against the Articles of Confederation, I'd just like to point out that there were in fact 8 individuals who were considered the presidents of Congress, which would have been the predecessor to the President of the United States under the Articles of Confederation. They each served a 1-year term, starting with John Hanson, then Elias Boudinot, Thomas Mifflin, Richard Henry Lee, John Hancock, Nathaniel Gorham, Arthur St. Clair, and Cyrus Griffin.
Yeah, Richard Henry Lee's name should sound awful familiar, because he had a grandson who you may have heard of.
What? I think we talked about that previously.
So, all right, have we beat Shay's rebellion dead horse now?
I mean, I think as far as we want to on this podcast, like if I was doing just a history podcast, there's so much more to this that I could go.
There's so many little things, like the when they went to the courts and they protested in front of the courts and wouldn't allow judges in, or when the people that were going to be on the juries were like, no, we're not crossing that line. Like, if we talked about every single one of those, it'd be like a 4-hour podcast, which would be too big for an Anchor upload.
We'd wind up basically being George Carlin, and his hardcore history, or Dan Carlin and his hardcore history podcast, where it's like 6 to 8 hour episodes. And he's got his blitzes that are like 12 and a half hours. They're just
kind of like the one you were on yesterday.
Oh, well, that was not a blitz. That was a fucking marathon.
Yeah,
poor Magnus.
Yeah, Magnus just like.
It sounds like he had fun with it, though.
I think he had fun, but by the time he was done, he was like, dude, I'm going to bed right now. I'm so done with this.
Can you blame him?
And today was his birthday.
Yep.
Well, happy birthday, Magnus.
So like
Yeah.
after all of that, then the very next day is his birthday too. On top of that, like Jesus, man.
He posted a cool video of him shooting an AR while drinking a beer. Like, yeah, fuck yeah.
He's like one-handing the AR and chugging a beer.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah, freedom.
So,
That doesn't get a whole lot more America than that, I don't think.
Well, I mean, there's that video of that dude getting head while he fires a pistol in the air and chugs a Budweiser. So,
Yeah, all right, you got me.
All right, let's move on to something good. Where do we want to go? Do we want to go to North Carolina, Colorado, or Missouri?
None of those sound particularly
I
fun.
don't really want to go to any of those places.
Let's go to Colorado.
Okay.
Well, I guess at least they have legal weed there. I don't know.
Well, it's gonna take some legal weed for this one to make sense.
Right?
They got legal weed, but you can't play kickball.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Cops threaten kickball players with child abuse charges.
Wait a second. What?
Hold your what's. What
No.
happens on summer eve when a couple of dozen kids and parents spill into the street for a neighborhood game of kickball on a well-manicured street in Colorado Springs last week? This occasional 3 cop cars, 8 officers, and a citation for, quote, obstructing passage or assembly. The crime? Frolicking. More specifically, playing in the street without a permit.
Can you imagine a guy who's just got his huge rap sheet and it's nothing but frolicking?
Oh man,
Look at how much whimsy this guy has. Frolicking.
I would wear that like a badge of honor.
I was arrested for frolicking.
The perpetrators, Ed Snyder and Joe Coleman, are hard-boiled recidivist. I think that's the right word. Recreation activist, recidivist.
Yeah.
For 4 summers now. This is since 2017. So for 4 years now, the men have brazenly organized weekly 90-minute kickball games that bring out neighbors of all ages, from toddlers to teens to parents. Until recently, the games were not deemed a threat to public safety, but apparently a neighbor complained, and that was enough for the Colorado Springs Police Department to spring into action.
Fuck you, Karen.
Always fucking Karens, just ruining everybody's fun.
Yeah,
These
there's
are
got to be
neighbors.
one.
These are people that live in the same goddamn neighborhood, just getting together.
Do I need to get the patch?
Probably.
Hold on, it gets better.
Oh fuck.
Some of the officers arriving on the scene were new recruits.
Of course they
Commander
were.
Tish Ozlewski, Olszewski.
Is it Olszewski, maybe? Ozlewski?
Okay, so Commander Tish told the Colorado Springs Indy, quote, I looked at it as a great training opportunity for these new police officers. One of the things they have to learn is community engagement.
Community fucking engagement.
In response, Coleman's one of the guys organizing the kickball game, quipped, quote, I wouldn't say this experience for most of the people here is community building.
Yeah, you think?
No. You think? You know, those cops show up, they should have immediately been like, you know what? Fuck it. You guys versus us. We'll take the tickets if we lose.
Yeah, if we lose, we'll take the tickets. If we win, we get your M4s.
Fair trade. Fair trade.
When the cops arrived, they told the group that they needed a permit to play in the street. But 3 weeks earlier, when the authorities first got involved after the neighbor's complaint, Snyder had actually tried to get a permit. Right? So after 4 years since 2017, every Monday night during the summer when school's out, they have this kickball game. For 4 years. And then one neighbor complains.
Yeah, and then one lame ass, probably middle-aged woman who's not included
Fucking
because
Karen.
she's a piece of shit. That one lame ass woman's got to be like, well, you know what? I'm just gonna call the police. They can't be doing that.
Not
It's not
going
that-
out and talk. Yeah, not going out and talking to the people. Not going out
No,
and talking
because
to
that
the
would
neighbors.
actually require them to actually talk to people and
Yes.
understand their fucking neighbors and get to know somebody other than, ooh, me and my special poofy fucking hair, you goddamn bitch.
You think you're riled up now? Just wait.
just.
So Snyder had actually tried to get a permit. Snyder's the other organizer of the kickball games for the last 4 years, every Monday night during the summer. Quote, the person got back to me and basically said there's a 14-day waiting period for this, and we'd have to go and get signatures from everybody on the block every single time we had to do this. So it's not practical for a kickball game that lasts an hour and a half. Plus, you'd have to rent $300 worth of barricades each time. You can't put up your own barricades. It wasn't a practical solution. So
What?
so every Monday night during the summer, they would have to get a permit, which required the signatures of everyone on the block, and have to pay $300 for the barricades each Monday night for 90 minutes worth of kickball. To play on a street in front of their homes.
And the thing is
I
too is
can't
like
even
they were
process
charged.
it.
Yeah, they were charged with impeding. One of the words in there was gathering or
Yes.
assembly.
Yes.
They are assembling. They're an assembly. They're not
It's a
impeding any
peaceful
assembly.
assembly.
They are assembling. What?
An alternative solution suggested that the cops was for the group to go play at the local park where they wouldn't be obstructing traffic. This is a cul-de-sac.
I figured as much.
At
It's
the
a
end of
fucking
at the end of a
cul-de-sac.
street where I think the original article I said that about once a game or twice a game they have to let a car pass.
You know,
Like it is-
Wayne's World
because
comes to mind right now.
because everyone
Car.
else on the block is there at
Yeah, they're
the
all
game.
playing.
Right.
Yes.
And there's one commie fucking authoritarian piece of shit who wants to go, hey, government, come stop these people from having fun.
And threaten
Yes.
these people with legitimate threats of violence.
Hold that thought. Hold that thought, Christopher.
I don't know that I
The
want
group
to.
enjoyed the block party feel of it. The alternative to that alternative was less pleasant. Quote, we tried to reasonably come to a conclusion on how to settle this, said Colonel Tish or General Tish or Air Tish, whatever the fuck.
Commandant Tish.
Commandant Tish. We've given verbal warning after verbal warning. We've said, hey, go the permit route. Go through the city. Get a permit so you can block the street and play kickball.
You don't want to block the fucking street.
But that's not.
Hold on.
So they can come through.
Hold on. But stubbornly insisting that it was their right to play in front of their homes, the locals were courting disaster. Quote from, Air Fear Tish. Quote, the next step after tickets, it goes to child abuse. We get the district attorney involved because you're putting them out there where a car could come by and plow into them. Then it goes to contributing to the delinquency of a minor, which is a felony. I don't think anyone wants to get charged with a felony. We have really tried to work with all of you. We don't want it to come to this.
Bullshit, you fucking tyrant. Andrew pointed at his shirt that says Barry Tyrants. And he's absolutely right in this case. God damn it.
Four years. Every Monday night during the summer. 4 years. Every Monday night during the summer.
And all of a sudden,
90 minutes.
Yeah, and all of a sudden you get one goddamn piece of shit human being who maybe happened to just move onto the block.
Probably.
And just went, oh, they're out there. They're not supposed to.
Or whose kid fell and skinned their knee. Or whose car got a little ding or scratch.
It's probably not even that. What it probably is this dumb twat probably came home, was on her way home from work, and they were playing kickball, and she had to wait 10 seconds for the play to end so they could move out of the way so this fucking bitch could drive her way into her fucking driveway.
And this, der Obergruppen Führer Ozlowski really needs to realize.
Wow, I love it.
That no, you didn't try to work with everyone on this. You tried to work with the one Karen in the entire neighborhood complaining and dictated to everyone else. That isn't working with anybody. And so help me, if I were the person with my kids going to a kickball game and you attempted or even threatened to charge me with child abuse for it. Remember, your freedom isn't disappearing. It's being taken by people with names and addresses.
I contacted the Libertarian Party of Colorado and the county Libertarian Party in regards to this and said, hey, this is something you guys might want to get interested in. This is something you guys could get involved in. Go out there, talk to people, maybe run some interference, advocate for freedom in this.
Yeah, do some actual good, maybe actually do something.
No response at all.
Yeah.
Oh,
useless milquetoast bunch of fucking babies. I mean, that's what it is.
To be perfectly honest, if this had happened in Andrew and my state, I can guarantee you tomorrow night while they're out there playing kickball without their fucking permit, people like Andrew and I and the people that we associate with in our state would go and stand on that street and be like, okay.
I would love to see. Yeah, I would love to see the Karens call and complain when there's a bunch of armed men in body armor running interference for a kickball game.
Yep.
Let me know how that works out for you.
Exactly what would fucking happen around here. Even if I had to drive all the way to Milwaukee to do it, I would.
Well, you know what?
Do it.
You know what you do is at this point, because one neighbor called and complained, is what you do is you go door to door with a video camera. You knock on the door and you ask people if they mind if you play a kickball game there. And the one person who says no, who wants nothing to do with it, you now know who in your neighborhood is the Karen. And now the entire neighborhood knows whose life to make an ever-loving fucking hell every single day until they move.
Yep.
According to the Colorado Springs Indy, CSIndy.com, that when the cops showed up the first time, there were 25 parents hanging out watching the kids play.
So they're just hanging out, having a grand old time,
Yes.
Like you said, a block party. Everyone's out there
So,
just enjoying the fresh air, maybe having a couple of beers, get the grill out. I mean, they're just they're a neighborhood having a good time together.
One of the parents, Brendan Marshall, says, when I call the cops because there's some guy acting crazy and the cops don't show up, but they show up every night for this, that makes no sense.
Well, yeah. They show up for this because there's one person on the block who makes a big fucking stink. And that's the only reason they show up.
Well, they're showing up because these are people who aren't a risk for them to deal with as far as they're concerned. That's why they're showing up.
Low-hanging fruit.
Yep, low-hanging fruit. I mean, but again, this goes back to what we keep saying, which is no one makes more anarchists than government. How many of these parents do you think had trust in the police department before? Because this is a well-to-do suburb from the sounds of things. How many of them had all this trust in police before, and now what they've learned is that you cannot trust the police.
Another quote from Brendan Marshall. He says, quote, I remember the first time Mackenzie looked out the window and said, Daddy, what are they doing? With the little ones, the big kids know how to give them a chance to get to first base, maybe second base. It's the greatest thing, and for people to complain and bitch is just ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, and here's the thing too, is there could be even, if the government cared enough, there could even be a solution there where they would said, hey, look, we will allow you to shut down the street with a permit. You get a permanent permit for X amount of money. Every Monday night, we will shut down that street for 3 months, 4 months, whatever. and you just pay this amount. They can then have a fundraiser. They can create a little club. They can have a fundraiser. They can do it. They can turn it into a big event, and it's fine.
Lindsay Marcuti, whose preschool-aged daughter takes part in the weekly game, said it's a beautiful event on the safest street in Colorado Springs. She says the residents noted that it's a chance for parents to build community connections.
Yeah. See, and this is why the government doesn't like it, because people who have good relationships with their neighbors, neighborhoods where everyone knows each other, have strong connections, they don't need government, and this makes government concerned.
Yep. Air Tish, or Fear Tish, whatever her name is now, Chairman Tish. Did we settle?
Der Obergruppenführer Tisch.
Yeah, Fear Tish says, here's a thought. If you don't like the city ordinance, we are a society that lives by going and making and changing laws. You guys can go to the city council as a group of parents and say, quote, we have a problem with this ordinance. What do we need to do to change it, modify it?
Essentially, what she's saying is fucking vote harder to get your people on the city council.
Well, maybe you should
to
just
make
vote
this
harder.
easier.
Yeah, you know what? You know how much we got? We were complaining.
Jesus.
I can remember a few years ago, my neighborhood was complaining about here in the city I live, that they were complaining about a huge pothole in the street that the city wasn't fixing. Went to the city council. City council basically told us to fuck off. And when we complained, then the city council's response after we complained in the local media was, well, why don't you just run against us the next time that we're incumbents?
Yeah.
And so when that happened and several of us were going to run, they gerrymandered the districts so that they were no longer up for re-election.
Yep.
That's what they did. So this is there aren't government solutions here. There's no voting that's going to save you. That isn't how you fix this. To quote the Lord of War, bullets change governments far surer than votes.
Since the cops have been showing up, Nancy Henjum, Henjum, she's a city councilwoman for the old North End area of Colorado Springs. Every game night, she rides her bicycle over and talks to parents and hangs out with the kids.
So you have a city council member who's now coming out there to hang out with everybody and be like, hey, this is a lot of fun. And the cops are still coming out and going, oh, we're going to harass the living fuck out of you.
Yeah. Because remember who really is the government power. It's not the people in government at all.
No, it's the jackboots that they use to enforce their laws at the end of a gun.
It's the people like Der Obergruppenführer Osluski. That's what it is. It's Herr Kommandant. That those are the ones who actually make what government says real. They're the only reason that this isn't that government isn't a bunch of crazy people yelling and complaining in their ivory towers.
A woman who lives on the block said in the letter she left on the doors, on the other people's doors, that players were blocking her driveway, and she asked them to move away from her house.
Blocking her drive? Was she going out of her driveway? Was she coming into her driveway? No, it was just merely that you were on your driveway. And by the way, the section of your driveway that is in the boulevard isn't even yours. It's city property.
The cops sent an undercover vehicle. Police in an undercover vehicle first approached the group of about 25 kids and adults who were in the street. Parents said the unmarked vehicle stopped yards before reaching the group and didn't have a blinker on, so they weren't sure if they planned to proceed onto Tuhon Street. During game time, parents said they are hypervigilant about watching for cars and yell "car" when they see one coming, and kids and adults scattered to the side of the street.
Growing up, we did that all the time. We played football sometimes tackle football because we're idiots in the street.
That shit fucking hurt so bad.
North Tejon Street dead ends at Penrose Hospital, a block to the north. Right, so the Tejon Street is the street that they play on. It dead ends at the hospital. One of the parents says some nights not one car goes through there.
Yeah,
He says sometimes adding that the average of vehicles per game is less than 6 in 90
And
minutes.
there's
6 vehicles in 90 minutes.
Yeah,
Oh,
and there's that
guys.
one person who whined because they were too close to their property instead of sitting back like a reasonable human being and going, "But am I leaving? Is somebody coming in?" Because if that happens, they'll move out of the way. They're not bothering anybody. It's solely that you're like, "It's in my property. It's in mine. Get away."
Respect my authority.
You're basically a fucking hermit crab. Do you realize that? You are a surly hermit crab, and that's what's going on. Like, fuck you cunt.
Okay. I don't know if this is going to show up or not, but I'm going to try a screen share so you can see what Commander whatever the fuck her name is.
Der
looks
Obergruppenführer Ozlowski.
Der Obergruppenführer Ozlowski. Yes. You got to see this.
That just makes me giggle so hard.
All right. Let's see here.
We have reports that you are not following the dictates of the fair.
Can you see this or not?
Oh, that's a Karen.
Oh, that's a Karen herself. We tried to work with you. No, you fucking didn't. Oh, and she's been doing nothing but fucking cop shit since 1984.
Like I said, I had to point this out just because it's like, oh my goodness.
Fucking
This
Karen.
is the
Fucking
exact
Karen.
person that, honest to goodness, she's probably the person who decided that arbitrarily that this needed to be quashed without anybody else, because she is a fucking Karen in and of herself.
Yeah.
Actually,
yeah.
based on her size, she's probably 3 Karens.
Yeah,
but-
Colorado Springs Gazette, one of the other articles that I looked up, got the quotes from, said that on the street only 3 houses objected.
3 houses. That's
3
it.
houses. 3 houses
the entire
objected.
neighborhood. 3.
Of the 60 signatures collected, 3 people complained.
Yeah, I mean,
objective.
like, let's, building strong, and those are people who don't want strong relationships with their neighbors. Building strong relationships with your neighbors is very important. I mean, where I'm at,
strong communities, strong neighbors that rely on each other, that keep each other's back, have less use for the police and the government. That's what it comes down to.
And that's their biggest gripe. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's even the 3 buildings right around me. So where I live, and then there's a house over here and a house over here. When we do fires in our backyard, because I got a fire pit out there and stuff, when I do fires, my neighbors from each side, they'll hop up over the fences with their lawn chairs. Their dogs will come trotting over. They'll set up coolers, and we'll all have beers and sit around the fire and hang out and talk. When we were on vacation for a week, we were up camping way up north. We were out in the woods for a week. We text one of our neighbors, "Hey, can you just check and make sure that the air conditioner is still running so it's not getting too hot in the house, and just kind of keep an eye on the place?" "Yeah, sure, no problem."
Yep.
That's what you get out of strong communities. You get to do that, where you get that reassurance, and like the other day, our neighbor Holly, she came over and I was like, "Hey, look at the new back stairs that I built. Aren't these great?" And we're showing it off and petting her dog, and Ellie, who's a real sweetheart and stuff.
And to contrast that, you look at where I live, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 houses around me. I have a passable relationship with the mayor, who lives just up the hill from me. The only other person that lives around us that we have any kind of relationship with is a coworker of mine who happens to live kitty corner and has a granddaughter the same age as my daughter.
Those people would call the police
Nobody else
on your kickball game.
The only other interaction we've had with any neighbors was last year when we had a gigantic tree fall in our yard, and the guy who literally called the cops because my dog was barking came down to make sure we were okay when the tree fell.
Yeah, the a kickball game though at Chris's would be like the world's longest kickball game, because every single kick would wind up a quarter mile away.
Oh,
down
that's
the
right.
hill,
He lives
and
on the hill.
You'd have to go all the way down.
You would roll, like, pitch the ball down the hill and kick uphill.
So if
and
I miss, then it just goes all the way down.
So it's literally the world's smallest game, because that ball's not going up the hill.
Well, it's kind of one of those things where you would have to actually have a catcher Because in kickball, you usually don't have a catcher. You have the pitcher cover home plate when there's a play there. But you would actually have to have a catcher to make sure the ball didn't go down the hill.
Just send the hill at 25 miles an hour because it's that steep.
Yep.
It would just be like, oh, well, that ball's gone. Grab a new one.
Yep. I need to change my gender to kickballitarian.
Kickballitarian. I identify as a kickball. Self-identify as kickballer. My oh God, my pronouns include pitcher, catcher.
I self-identify as a kickball. Yeah, thanks, life. I appreciate that.
Yeah, right.
My pronouns are bonk, and
my pronouns are asterisk. The sound of the yellow ball hitting your face in dodgeball.
Ding.
Yeah. Oh man, I can still feel the Voight checker marks that were on those balls
Oh,
in my
God.
face.
Oh.
Yeah.
As you're walking to the bench. Ding.
When my
nose,
daughter,
the nose piece on my glasses jabbing into my fucking nose.
Oh.
yeah, when my daughter was, I think she was like 3, there were these kids playing kickball in the park that was like 2 houses down from where we lived. And I took her over there, and the very first time she tries to pitch, this other little girl kicks it and just mainlines it straight into her face. Just whack, and she just goes down like a log. And I'm like, oh no.
You got to stop and take a deep breath. Calm down, PTSD. Calm down, PTSD.
Yeah, I'm just like, oh.
While the government is shutting down kickball, the FBI bankrolled a publisher of occult neo-Nazi books.
Of course they did. They're big fans.
Court documents claim that the confidential informant who helped bring down the Otto-Waffen division is also a publisher of white supremacist literature.
What a shock.
The Federal Bureau of Investigation has paid a man involved in the publishing house specializing in occult neo-Nazi books more than $100,000 since 2003, according to court filings. The publishing house is Martinet Press. Fine purveyors of Otto-Waffen division approved books such as Iron Gates and Liber 333.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm going to cut you off for a second. It's Autowaffen.
Autowaffen, yeah.
Autowaffen.
Liber 333 is woo boy.
Satanic cult.
Yeah.
Oh
Roman
my.
post-apocalyptic America, which opens the scene of a child being murdered.
Yep.
That's what I want
yeah,
to read.
that's
sounds like a piece of literature right there.
Yeah.
The apparent informant is Joshua Caleb Sutter, a man with long-standing ties to white supremacist organizations. Sutter's father was a Pentecostal preacher who ran racist memorabilia stores in the areas around the South Carolina capital of Columbia. Sutter and his father would take turns running the counter.
What is a racist memorabilia store? Like, what do you sell?
Nazi paraphernalia.
I mean, I would assume Nazi paraphernalia, but
Confederate flags.
Hey, how do you tell the difference between a Nazi, like a racist paraphernalia store, and just like an antique store in the South?
They're about the same. I mean,
I'm just pointing out, like, how do you tell
perspective?
I guess.
Perspective. I mean, if the sign out
behind what you're selling, I guess.
Then that's one thing. If the sign out front says, "Hey, buy your Nazi shit here," well, you know.
Well, I mean, if it has like auction house authentication, then it's memorabilia.
If you name your store Sieg Heil.
Yeah, we're gonna go down to the local antique store. Hi, Hitler. It's Cousin Friedrich, fine memorabilia of the fatherland. Probably not an antique store.
The court documents implicating Sutter are from a federal government's case against Caleb Cole, who prosecutors say was the leader of the neo-Nazi terror group Wattelwaffen division, obtained by investigative journalist Ali Whitson. The documents are a motion to suppress evidence related to the search warrant used in Cole's home. The documents don't use Sutter's name, but the description of the FBI's confidential informant leaves little doubt that it's him. Quote, the government has informed defense counsel that the CI in this case has worked as an informant for the FBI for approximately 16 years. Since 2003, he has been paid over $140,000 for his work. More importantly, the CI has been paid $78,133.20, plus an expense advance of $4,378.60 since February 7, 2018, which almost entirely coincides with his work on the investigation into Mr. Cole and Otto Waffen.
Jesus.
Hold on. The CIA is a convicted felon and currently owns and operates a publishing company that distributes white supremacist writings. The CIA began his long career as a professional informant in exchange for consideration regarding his sentence on a federal conviction for possession of a firearm with an obliterated serial number and an unregistered silencer. He has continued to work for pay.
I mean, he wasn't hurting anybody with that bit. Now, I will say the obliterated serial number screams theft. So that's suspicious, but ultimately that bit he wasn't, and even distributing just your idiotic fucking ideas, even doing that, not necessarily anything wrong with that. You're not necessarily hurting anybody, but you are being paid by the government to inform on people.
Oh no! Hold on. Hold that thought. Sutter, the snitch, is a former high-ranking member of the Aryan Nations who was arrested in 2003.
Of course.
According to the court records, he, quote, knowingly possessed a firearm with an obliterated serial number. As with the CI in the Cole case, Sutter's gun had a silencer. He served a brief stint in federal prison in Georgia, but got out in 2004. So he was in prison as a member of the Aryan Brotherhood for less than a year.
And he got kicked right back out again.
If I'm not mistaken, isn't the penalty for a firearm with an obliterated serial number and an unregistered suppressor something like 10 years?
Unregistered suppressor should keep you in prison way longer than that.
Something like that, yeah.
So essentially what I'm hearing is this guy cut a deal with the feds to be a snitch in order to get out. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes. That your government is paying for while he prints Nazi.
So the government is paying a known Nazi, an avowed fucking Nazi.
Armed avowed Nazi to get out of prison, and they're paying him money to be a snitch. Well, this isn't the first time shit like this has happened. I mean, in West Germany, there was and after the unification in Germany, there was I don't remember the name of the organization, but there was a neo-Nazi organization that was assassinating at random Jewish store owners. And one of them was working as a CI for German secret police the entire time and never gave them anything. And they kept paying him thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, which he used to purchase illegal weapons to be able to keep assassinating people.
Yeah. After leaving prison, Sutter returned to South Carolina, moved into a trailer owned by his father, and married a woman named Jillian Hoy, the director of Martinet Press, which publishes a pantheon of esoteric and apocalyptic occult neo-Nazi literature. The books Martinet Press publishes tend to be a nihilistic, jargon-filled, and fictional. They advocate for a world where the strong destroy society and usher in the collapse of civilization.
You know what's weird is I think I know her relatives. I actually think I know her relatives. The name Martinet Press and Jillian Hoy rings a bell. I think I actually know her fucking relatives. That is really creepy.
Yeah,
I had no idea that that's what that was.
That's your tax dollars at work, people.
Yeah, paying someone and this isn't even just regular Nazi propaganda, right? This is the hardcore occult, the kind of shit that the SS did and everything and worshipped, and this is hardcore occulty Nazi crazy.
It's far enough out there that he was able to get in with Otto Waffen enough that he was able to snitch on them.
Yeah.
Right. And I can't even wrap my head around that.
Yeah. Like the guy selling the Turner Diaries on eBay, he's not gonna get connected with Autowaffen in any way. But this guy was selling stuff hard enough that he got connected with Autowaffen.
Well, yeah, it said, what about Liber 33 or 333? That it's a, let's go back to that. Where is it? It says it's a book about a satanic cult roaming a post-apocalyptic America, which opens with the scene of a child being murdered.
Yeah.
And there is a
tax dollars at work, America.
There is a picture at the top of the article here of the from the Temple of Blood. They have a Tumblr because of course they fucking do.
Jesus.
It says it's from the Temple of Blood Tumblr, but it is the cover of the book, and that is an upsetting thing.
Yes.
That is not fucking okay, man. Like
that's your tax dollars at work.
Yeah, and you're paying over $100,000 to this piece of subhuman fucking shit to keep putting this shit out just because he's snitching on these other motherfuckers who may or may not even be doing a goddamn thing to anyone.
They're suspected domestic terrorists.
So are we.
I wasn't going there, but yeah, probably.
Look at your hat.
But I mean,
you're a domestic terrorist.
I know. Yeah. I know.
You deserve a red check mark.
Are you kidding me? If I got a red check mark for every single patch that I had that said anything about government being terrible,
I wouldn't
have a name. All I would have is red fucking check marks.
Let's see.
I feel
exactly. I feel personally attacked by that wall right there.
I have a few.
Yeah, I feel like Prince when he changed his name to the symbol, like it would just be red check marks and you just go, eh. Like that's how you say my name.
Yeah.
How you doing? Eh.
See, that's what I don't want a name. I just want to be the sound of the 22 train whistle suppressor.
But see, like I at least have some redeeming qualities because I have that patch.
That's my ass, bro. Stop. Right? No, the 22 train whistle suppressor sounds interesting. Yeah, exactly. Morally flexible. But I really want the other one Andrew was talking about, where you can put it on like a 338 Win Mag that just slowly releases the pressure. So,
yeah, because we all had those, right? Like we all got those, especially if you went to school, like elementary school in Wisconsin. You went to the train museum, and so everybody got the train whistles, and so we'd all blow on them and everything. So can you imagine being in the woods, being ambushed, and constantly hearing every time somebody drops, you
like
you would have
is it make it sound Maddie's train horn. So every time somebody does
just imagine natties after hiking through the woods all day long, trying to run from people. They're eating their beans. All of a sudden, the can of beans explodes, and they just hear.
Their kid would have one of those whistles and blow it, and they just it'd be like the Vietnam choppers thing for a second. Give me that. Tosses it to the fireplace. Why, Daddy? You wouldn't understand.
Oh, we need to show that to Trashman and get him to start making some memes about it.
Yeah, I got to do a welcome to the Boog one with the train whistle now. That's gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's just so great. It's such a wonderful idea. And everyone keeps pointing out it's not a suppressor. It's a report enhancer. Mm-hmm. It makes it more interesting. It just
what's the other one? Didn't who was it? One of the bigger companies made one, and it was a cone that went that it fit on a washer that went behind the brake. and it like instead of the sound distributing 360 degrees, the sound was focused forward, and it made it like extra loud, like it literally increased the decibels.
Well, yeah, the Noveski flaming pig is like that. Their flame shield, their blast shield, where it'll focus it all down. Yeah, you have one.
Yeah, I've got one on this. You can see how it's kind of pointing everything out that direction.
No. This was like literally it looked like a coffee cup that you put around.
I've got one of those.
So
not here. It's
so it didn't. So what you're saying is it didn't just focus the sound downrange; it actually made it even louder and downrange.
Yes.
Just arbitrarily, just for fucking with people.
Yes,
then
like it was designed like to focus the muzzle blast forward, right? So like if you're laying next to somebody, you're not going to kick up dust and debris in their face.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing as what he's gotten as the Noveski flaming pig and stuff. Yeah, there's no openings around the outside of that; they're all in the front.
Yeah, I shot this actually today without Ear Pro on it. With that, I sent you guys a picture of what that looks like.
What's left of the groundhog or ground squirrel?
Fireball.
Yeah. No, there really wasn't much of a fireball, but I got 1,400 feet per second out of a 180 grain projectile, and
10 mil, right?
10 millimeter, yeah. And it was hearing safe for me standing right behind it.
Yeah, in front of it's not hearing safe, although it's not safe in general at all.
Good. It sucked being in front of it, but behind it, where I was standing, using it, that didn't bother me. My ears didn't ring at all.
So, all right, where do you guys want to go? You want to go to North Carolina?
Yeah, I was gonna say we should do the North Carolina one because this one like just infuriates me on a level that is difficult to explain.
That's why you're the perfect person to read it.
I was dragging a 2,000-pound trailer when the articles were posted, so I didn't get a chance to look at any of them.
Oh, you'll like this one.
Really? Do I need to refill my drink before we start this?
You might want
to.
And you might want to take a few
shots. I'm going to show everybody what I'm drinking tonight then.
Nice and manly with the pink Moscato.
I got iced tea with no sugar.
So I drank all my beer for the weekend.
You guys will love mine. Mine is called War Pigs.
Nice.
Oh,
it's from Salmon Pants, which I really appreciate.
Andrew, you make fun of me for the pink Moscato, but I can get 34 glasses of wine out of this $13 box.
Okay.
And
12 glasses of wine, you say?
Yes. My glass looks like this.
It's just
it's my coffee cup, You're
still drinking pink wine from a box, Christopher.
Yeah, I'm just pointing out.
I'm saying. I mean, you can go the whole Thomas Sowell economics argument for that, which is fine. I can't take that away from you. I can't take that away from you. But at the end of the day, you're still drinking pink wine from a box.
Hey, I am secure enough in my masculinity that it doesn't bother me.
It's 2021. It's 2020. It's 2021. You can identify as whatever you want. I'm okay with that.
All I can think of is that scene of Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
This is a non-discriminatory podcast.
Yeah, all I can think of is that scene in Aqua Teen Hunger Force with the Moonanites, where Meatwad's like, "Where's my whiskey? I'm gonna get tore up," and they're like, "Yes, we should acquire some cheap boxed wine on the way to the mall, and you can pass out in the hot sun."
All right, let's get an article.
Whiskey, damn it, I was pissed.
All right. Hour and a half in. So let's.
Is that all?
Long time. Yeah. The longtime owner of a gun show in eastern North Carolina spent 3 months in prison in 2005 after getting busted for selling and buying guns without a license. After his release,
is an infringement.
Yep. After his release, he went right back to running his gun show. So, and it's such an infringement. We'll get there, I think. Sherwood Watson Caraway was sentenced Tuesday to 1 year and 1 day in prison after he pled guilty to owning firearms as a convicted felon, prosecutors in the Eastern District of North Carolina said. Caraway was also ordered to surrender all of his guns and ammunition. The 62-year-old had been the owner and registered agent of S&D Show Promotions since 1993, state records show. S&D is a gun and knife show production company operating out of Eastern North Carolina. Prosecutors said Caraway sold his interest in the gun shows after he pleaded guilty last year. Defense attorneys representing Caraway did not immediately respond to McClatchy News' request for comment on Tuesday, and Caraway could not be reached for comment. According to federal court filings, Caraway was charged in 2005 with selling firearms without a license. He pled guilty and was sentenced to 3 months in prison with 2 years of supervised release. Caraway apologized to the court during his sentencing hearing in November 2005, saying what he did was wrong but not intentional because he thought he didn't need a license to, quote, buy, sell, and trade to enhance his own collection, end quote.
Which legally you don't.
Correct.
You know, I would
the
like
only
to...
guns that he ever bought or sold were to and from his own collection. Otherwise, he just facilitated the show.
Like Ross did nothing but run a website.
Right. You know, there was a gun show here in my little tiny 1,500 person town that I went down to yesterday.
My last gun show here, 7 vendors.
There were the venue could only hold 9 vendors. Okay, that's how small of the venue was here. But that place was fucking packed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was, you could not hardly walk amongst the tables because people were crammed in there so bad.
That's why I don't go to gun shows, is because my anxiety gets so bad that I can't do it.
To give you an idea of the craziness that was happening, there was a guy that walked through the door with a Mosin that was, I looked at it. I was like, you know, I'll take a look at it and see. He had none of the serial numbers matched. It was an M44 Mosin. And there was a guy that paid him $500 cash for a
complete mystery
Mosin
gun.
carbine.
Yeah, I mean, that's, yeah. But I mean, so this is all this guy did, right? He said, I love guns and I collect. He said, in fact, I've got 42 of them in my safe, or had 42 of them. Like, all he was doing, the only guns that he actually himself bought or sold, he kept possession of or were from, his personal collection. He never,
perfectly legal.
Yeah, he never actually bought or sold any guns as a dealer at all whatsoever. He just happened to also run the gun show, which the state objected to. It says prosecutors, however, rebuffed the idea that Caraway didn't know what he was doing when he reportedly sold guns to undercover agents, saying he knows what he's doing is illegal. He is a gun dealer. He needs a license. He can't get one now, prosecutors said during the hearing. The government would like a judgment fashioned in such a way that this man can't do what he so desperately wants to do, deal in guns. He has no intention of giving up the gun show. He expects to run these things on and on. That's exactly what Caraway did, prosecutors said Tuesday.
He's not, but he's not. He's buying and selling guns from people. He's buying guns. Using them
for his personal collection.
He's
buying and selling for his personal collection, while also separately running the gun show.
Yeah, what he's doing is setting up an event. The vendors are buying and selling. The vendors are doing all of that. All he is doing is securing a venue and producing advertising. That is what he's doing.
But that is it. He didn't have the magic permit.
But because he didn't have a license to buy and sell guns, which again, he wasn't fucking doing.
He wasn't commercially doing it.
He wasn't doing it commercially.
Yeah, he wasn't in the business of buying and selling guns. Yeah. What he was in the business of was promoting shows.
Well, yeah. To be in the business of buying, selling guns, you actually have to have some sort of a storefront per se.
Well, you have to
conduct business from.
Yeah, you have to be doing business in a way. You have to be doing, your primary business needs to be buying and selling firearms. That's what it's supposed to be.
Which it obviously wasn't.
Yeah, which it wasn't, but that's not the way they're looking at. Investigators determined Caraway continued to run S&D gun and knife shows in North Carolina after his conviction and kept multiple guns at his home in Merritt, a small coastal community in Pamlico County. His role in the business was no secret. Caraway was cited in multiple news articles over the years talking about the shows. In 2009, he told WECT about an uptick in business at one of his shows after former President Barack Obama was elected. Caraway was also interviewed by Time magazine in 2016 after Obama took executive action to close loopholes that allow guns to be sold at gun shows without a mandatory background check, which is not really a loophole. That's just the law, and fuck you.
Personal sales versus commercial sales.
Yeah,
Right.
quote, I don't know what Obama's trying to do. He said in the interview, there's enough rules and regulations on the books right now to take care of what needs to be taken care of. The gun shows ain't the problem, and the gun stores ain't the problem. Around the same time, an article in Grenville's Daily Reflector described S&D as, quote, one of the largest promoters of gun shows in Eastern North Carolina with 25 shows annually. Promoters. The business does not buy or sell firearms. That is not what they do.
No, they're promoting a venue that's hosting the gun show.
Yeah,
That's
they
all they're
schedule
doing.
venues, they reserve the venues, they get vendors there, they create promotional material. That is what they do. None of the gun sales are them.
No.
Prosecutors, and this is where things get just fucking insane.
Oh, God.
Prosecutors said detectives with the Pamlico County Sheriff's Office searched Caraway's house in September 2017 and found, quote, numerous rifles, shotguns, and handguns, along with thousands of rounds of ammunition. This is the
what's
part.
The problem?
This is the part right fucking here. They also found 33 guns at his daughter's house that were previously stored at Caraway's, according to the release.
But they're his daughter's firearms.
Yes, they are.
They're his
They're
daughter's
hers.
weapons. They're nobody else's firearms but hers. She happens to be a firearms enthusiast with a collection of 39 firearms.
So he legally transferred ownership and possession of the weapons to her. That's what he did. As he was ordered to do, he gave them to her. But because she is his daughter, they confiscated her guns because they used to be his.
So they infringed upon her rights because her father was supposedly a criminal.
Yes.
Supposedly.
Because he was legally a criminal. Not morally a criminal. He was
not morally.
He was legally a criminal.
That's why I say supposedly, because he didn't actually have any victims.
No.
No.
Like 95% of the crimes don't have any victims.
Exactly. That's my point.
But reading that drove me just over the fucking, like, are you kidding me? They were hers. He gave them to her. He's like, hey, I can't have these anymore. You take them. Gave them to her. They're her guns now. And because they used to be his,
they confiscated
them.
Yes.
The Second Amendment is long fucking dead, especially in the American South. And if you think otherwise, you are deluded as fuck.
No, I don't even say especially in the American South, because the American South, while obviously a case study in absolute tyranny, especially from a cop perspective, it's nationwide. I mean, you hear about this shit happening coast to fucking coast.
Mm-hmm.
From the Canadian border to the Mexican. There was a story not too different from this in goddamn Texas, like 3 months ago.
One of the other big article that I have is about Missouri. Missouri.
Yep.
The Missouri government passed a law, signed into law by the governor, that declares federal gun regulations invalid. Right. Mm-hmm. Essentially, it's a Second Amendment sanctuary bill. State and local employees aren't allowed to collaborate with the federal government in regards to firearms. Right. The federal government sued the state of Missouri over this law because
there's a shock.
because it keeps the government from enforcing the federal gun laws that are on the books.
Well,
every single one of which is an infringement, of course.
Well, that's something.
It's the same thing that happened in Kansas a couple of years ago.
The point I was getting to is the judge in Missouri, where the federal government filed against the state of Missouri. The judge in Missouri is not going to block the law declaring federal gun regulations invalid. So the judge ruled in favor of the law in the state, the law within the state.
Well, it's almost like the 10th Amendment is supposed to be a thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing
is, this is the federal government suing the state government because the state is no longer enforcing.
Well, and keep in mind, and I've brought this up on the show before, though. I've brought this up on the show before where I've pointed out that what you need to remember, because when Kansas did this, we brought this up and I talked about it, that you have to remember that federal agencies don't have the kind of manpower to actually enforce.
There's what 5,500 total ATF personnel, and 80% of those are clerks and whatnot. They're not actual. They're not actual.
They depend. They depend entirely on local law enforcement's cooperation and assistance in order to do most of what they do. So, what Kansas and Missouri and I think Kentucky's threatened to do it if they haven't already.
Idaho has one. Idaho has one that recently went into effect. They had one from before, but they strengthened it earlier this year. Montana has one. Texas has one. Texas has one in regards to suppressors.
Yep.
Not all fire, but suppressors. And then I think Wyoming has one working through.
Oh God, Wyoming! That doesn't surprise me in Wyoming. I think Alaska's in the process too.
Yeah. But I mean, so what's happening is that the states are remembering that the 10th Amendment exists.
Yes.
And they are going, hey, wait a minute, my local law enforcement within the state is under no obligation to enforce federal laws. That's up to the federal government. They're the ones required to enforce federal laws, not us. So they're just banning their local law enforcement from helping. The ATF does not have the manpower to enforce these laws, which is why the federal government is now suing, because they're pissed off because they know they cannot possibly actually do as much infringement as they want without the cooperation of local law enforcement. And again, the fact that it's local law enforcement who does most of the enforcement for them should tell you something about your local fucking law enforcement.
Yes.
Oh yeah. The local fucking cops will do anything and everything to make themselves feel big and superior in the eyes of their federal fucking cohorts.
So, all right, let's mention this one real quick. Sri Lanka has banned people from riding elephants while drunk. So
there's a load of bullshit.
Who the fuck is gonna bring my elephant home when I ride it to the bar? Seriously.
What other time other than when I'm drunk am I gonna ride my elephant? I have a car if I'm sober. I need the elephant when I'm drunk.
The elephant will bring me home when I'm drunk because it never fucking forgets.
Well, yeah, the elephant's sober. I'm the one who's drunk.
Holy fucking shit, Christopher.
It knows where I live.
It knows where I'm going. Just let the elephant bring me fucking home.
Why are you arresting me?
Are you afraid I'm going to get into a car accident with a fucking elephant?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into a car accident. I'm going to do an elephant accident. There's no law against that.
I mean, if this elephant runs into my elephant, who the fuck is going to get hurt?
I'm not the one driving.
Yeah, the elephant.
If I'm riding an elephant, I'm not the one driving.
Well, and if like I said, if this elephant crashes into this elephant, who's fucking at fault? The elephant or the driver?
Yeah, the elephants. I really feel like they got minds of their own. They know what's going on.
Stop. I mean, and if this elephant gets hit by a car, the car is going to suffer more damage than the fucking elephant.
Who's riding an elephant sober is my question. Like, there aren't that many people that can possibly be sober and be like
tourists. I mean, tourists would be doing it. I mean, honestly, tourists are going to be the ones riding the elephants. But I mean, we can't ride ours now in Sri
Yeah,
Lanka.
what am I supposed to do with this elephant now? I spent a bunch of money on this fucking elephant while I was in Sri Lanka, specifically so that I could get back to my hotel here.
Sri Lanka. I had to get this elephant.
So now what am I supposed to fucking do with the elephant? All right, like look at what you've done to me. Now I'm gonna have to get rid of this elephant. I'm gonna have to find something else.
Enterprise did not have any compact sedans. I had the elephant.
They said they were gonna pick me up. They never picked me up. You know who did? The elephant.
Fucking
So
elephant. God damn it.
don't deny me my elephant.
Now,
Yeah.
question. If there are two people on the elephant and one of them's drunk and one of them's sober, who is considered the driver?
Still the elephant. Still the
Yeah, the
driver,
elephant's
so
still the
matter.
one that's driving.
I mean, they're saying that you can't be drunk while riding your. But I mean, if you're riding
the worst part is you leave the bar, right? You take a handful, you take a pocket full of peanuts from the bar.
See how convenient this is for everybody? This is lovely.
I mean,
a great setup.
Cabs cost money. Elephants work for peanuts. I'm just
literally for peanuts.
The bar literally gives you free peanuts. It's literally paying for your elephant ride.
It might as well be encouraging you. That might as well be a Sri Lankan bar safe ride.
Fucking entrapment.
Yeah.
I was just thinking the fucking safe ride around here, because around here, if one of the first 15 people on a night that's too drunk to drive home, you go tell the bartender, they call a cab, you get a free ride home.
Yeah, you know what? It should be.
You go to the barrel in the corner, you get a big old sack full of peanuts, and you just throw them in front of the elephant, and he picks them up as he walks you home.
They're practically encouraging you. Yeah, this is totally entrapment, man. This is just wrong. This is just wrong. This, if I were the people of Sri Lanka, I would be objecting. There should be
Anarchy Fest Sri Lanka has been canceled as a result of this. I'm sorry, guys.
I just, because this is the way my brain has worked, is now I'm just picturing elephant gangs, kind of like motorcycle gangs, wearing their colors and riding their elephants.
I told you, the damn elephant never forgets. He knows right.
Yeah, they actually do forget. They've done studies and figure they actually do forget, but it takes about 20 years.
Oh, well, perfect. Well, if I ride the elephant from the hotel and then ride the elephant back to the hotel while I'm drunk, he knows exactly where I'm fucking going.
Well,
yeah, he knows where I need to go.
Depends on how long you stay at the bar.
If I stayed at the bar for 20 years, we have a bigger problem.
You have a bigger problem.
That's a good way to lose a liver and a kidney.
Yeah, that's at
And
that
a lung,
point I'm pretty sure
and some corneas.
Yeah, you're just gonna visit the bathroom and just shit your liver out at that point, I think.
Gonna get the worst kind of Shanghai surprise.
Yeah, you're gonna be like, well, that's not good. He's gonna hop out, light a cigarette, be like, I'm getting the fuck out of here.
But again, he does drink pink wine from a lock. So
yeah, pink wine. Yeah.
He might fit in.
You're not allowed. So, Chris, in Sri Lanka, you are not allowed to drink your frou-frou pink wine from a box on the back of your elephant. Although it only says drunk, not drinking.
It doesn't say drinking, it says drunk. So I can put the box on the elephant's head and fill my glass. As long as I am not legally intoxicated, we're okay. They don't have an open container law.
I really feel like they should be breathalyzing the elephant in all this. It's because if the elephant's drunk, then yes, I can see a problem, a very large pachydermian problem. But if I'm drunk and the elephant's completely sober, who cares? The elephant knows where it's going. It's gonna be fine.
Sri Lanka's BAC is 0.06.
It's lower than Wisconsin?
It's lower than US, which is 0.08.
God damn.
Wow.
I hit that after a 6-pack, but I still feel sober.
I hit that after a bottle.
That would be 1/5 of a box of pink wine for those playing at home.
I probably hit that after an entire bottle of
so.
Jameson.
He put the bottle down. I'm not drinking that again.
Hey, I still got the box. I'm good.
I have seen, the sad thing is I have seen people walking around with boxes of wine at Oktoberfest, just with boxes of wine that have actually stapled straps to the box.
They put them in backpacks.
Yeah.
That's put them in backpacks it's like a camel pack.
Yeah, that is
No,
Yeah.
no.
I don't want to admit it, but I may have been that guy once.
That's yep. Nothing says redneck quite like I have a box of wine in my backpack at the festival.
Attached to my camp hose. I mean,
What was the one? There was speaking of that, there was a video of a guy at the recent festival in Chicago, and it was Lollapalooza or whatever it was, the big music thing that they had.
Yep. Yeah, it's
Where a guy inside the festival, like he walks to the specific tree and walks a certain number of steps in one direction, a certain number of steps to the other direction, stops, bends over, digs a few inches in the ground, and pulls up the big handle of vodka that he buried there before the festival.
Yep, he went out to the field prior to the festival and buried it
you
so
know,
that it was there.
that makes me think so much back 3 weeks ago when I volunteered out at a local festival called Ashley for the Arts. And I kid you not, I had guys come through the fence. No, they were completely cleared, no carry-ins. They walked 50 paces down the walkway, took a right, and right next to a tree, one of the guys got on the other guy's shoulder, pulled a 30-pack of beer out of the tree that they hid there 3 days earlier.
Yeah.
I have to read this tweet. I have to read this tweet real quick from the homie Joshua Smith. He said a whole generation of grown-up ravers are not worried about you shaming them for taking horse medicine. I assure you.
Yeah, all the ketamine. Yeah, that's it's like that meme with the people now, you know, whatever it is, the law enforcement is now going to use ketamine darts against animals that get too close to civilization or whatever, and it's mean. It's the guy in the lion suit, like, oh no, I'm too
really?
Rawr, rawr.
All right,
Actually,
let's
don't you ketamine though.
all right, let's wrap it up and get out of here before we reach the 0.06 and can't ride our elephants home.
Mine was outside for me.
Yes. And the damn wars, first of all.
Yes, endthedamnwars.org. That is the homie Magnus Panvidia and some of the OG Assange freedom fighters put that together. They're having a huge march on 9/11, the 20th anniversary in DC. There's also marches happening in Fort Lauderdale, Scottsdale. There's one Portland or Seattle, whatever. There's another one in Colorado. Go to endthedamnwars.org for more information on that, and follow In the Damn Wars on Twitter.
Yep. Buy their merch. I'm planning on buying one of their shirts. I was on his 12-hour podcast last night.
And
a couple
actually
times.
got requested to bring him back.
Yeah, to come back for some reason.
The fact that anybody actually wants to hear from Andrew, I don't know.
I was in the comments singing the praise.
Yeah, there were people that I'd never heard of on Twitter asking for me back too, several of them. And
I would have loved to have watched that, but I was too busy, drinking and playing cribbage with my father-in-law.
It's up
on YouTube. You can go back and you can watch it on
I don't know if I have 12 hours to dedicate.
You don't have to watch the
No. I was on part 3.
Part 3? Okay.
The end of part 3.
You're 7th?
Yeah, it was like the end of part 3, I think, if I remember correctly, and it was the beginning of the final part of part 4 at the very end, that I was on, talking about my time as a PMC and going through some of what happens in wars in the deep dark corners behind closed doors and things, and what it really looks like on the ground.
We're gonna go over here, but I'm gonna say, I know we didn't have anything on the docket for Afghanistan.
Dude, I am so oversaturated with Afghanistan.
I understand that, but I want to tell everybody, if voluntarism / anarchism is really what you want, what you espouse for, reach out to your local refugee groups. Get yourself on their lists, fill out their applications, go through their background checks, and get your ass in the pipeline to help these Afghans that are being brought to the States.
Yep.
My wife and I have our interview with the local organization tomorrow evening. It's a video conference interview, and What we then get is a pass to go out to the local military base where they're housing about 10,000 at this point to distribute food, blankets, clothing. If there's unaccompanied minors, we can actually take them in. Step up to the plate, help these fucking people that need your goddamn help. Don't sit there and say, I wish somebody would fucking do something. Fucking do something.
You are somebody.
Yep.
You
direct action.
Somebody. Be the change you want to see.
All right, throw your plugs. Let's get here.
Buy Derica's book, buy her crochet pattern. She wasn't here again because she doesn't like us.
I'm starting to really I'm starting to think it's me. I'm honestly starting to think it's me. Because ever since I came on, her and participation has gone way down.
It's 2 hours of staring at this. That's what it is.
No, it's gotta be this.
That's why she uses her phone. So it's a tiny little picture. She doesn't have to look at this.
But the thing is we all know she wants Andrew to join her and her husband. It's you and I that she actually wants nothing to do.
All right. Nothing else? Anybody else? Going once, going twice?
Oh boy, that threw me off.
We're gonna break.
Yeah. Also check out thebeardstruggle.com if you want cool beard products that work really well. They smell fantastic. They just introduced a couple new scents and they work absolutely fabulously. It's thebeardstruggle.com, and if you use code InkedAnarchist15 at checkout, you save yourself 15%. Also check out Avante Creo, and shop Valerio.com and use code InkedAnarchist25. Save yourself 25% on a bunch of cool streetwear, watches, sunglasses, all sorts of cool fashion stuff. Also, I'm not getting paid anything, but you need to check out our friend Luna's the Bad Moon Hemp and make sure that you use that beard oil. The beard oil will change your fucking beard forever for the better. I cannot rave enough about it. It is absolutely fantastic. Again, she hasn't given me jack for this. Not that I would say no to some free beard oil, Crystal, but if you want
me to push your products, hey, you know how to reach out to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying.
That stuff, man, I'm telling you, the cowboy scent is fantastic. It's this great hemp oil that just will make your beard permanently so much softer, so much greater. Absolutely worth it. Definitely check her out.
So, on that note, we are all caught up on Odyssey. Odyssey's uploading all our podcasts for us. And go check us out there. Also on Rumble. And then on that note, Christopher has shared the picture of the ground squirrel that he hit with the 10 mil, and it looks like it's 2 pieces. So
fatality.
Yeah,
pretty much. I mean,
when you shot, there was no whoot at the end. So
yeah, which is a little disappointing.
No, which is very disappointing. So. But there was a pink mist.
Oh, yeah. Lovely. All right. On that note, support your local gorilla, and we'll catch you on the next time.
Peace.
Peace.